So, welcome to Ukraine's Greatest Generation, the first in a series of regular Tochnyi segments about the lives of Ukraine's warriors, its defenders, and its citizens. Today, we feature the life of Vyacheslav Zaitsev, a historian, an archaeologist, and a veteran of the ZSU between 2014 and 2022. Vyacheslav Zaitsev was born on the 6th of September 1980 in the village of Ivanivka in Zaporizhia Oblast. Going to bring up a quick picture of Vyacheslav. There he is. We will return to these pictures. Okay, between 1998 and 2000, Vyacheslav served his nation early in an airborne unit in Bolhorad near Odessa. Between 2003 and 2008, he studied at the history department of Zaporizhia National University, graduating in that subject. In 2010, on Taras Shevchenko's birthday, he met his future wife Oksana, and in 2011, their daughter Polina was born. Until 2014, Vyacheslav worked as a guide at the Khotitsa National Reserve. Due to his qualifications and acumen as a historian, Zaitsev was grimly unsurprised by the Kremlin's 2014 invasion and its evident plans for Zaitsev's homeland of Ukraine. Vyacheslav was at Maidan in 2013 and 14, and upon the initial Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2014, he enlisted and went to the front line amongst the very first dispatch of Ukrainian defenders to the east to combat the Russian invasion of their country. Before you can of course see a picture of Maidan. So his service record from 2014 exemplifies the level of sacrifice that Ukrainian defenders such as Vyacheslav served, endured, and performed for their country and in defense of both their country, European security, and greater European security as well. Vyacheslav went to the front on March the 25th, 2014, with the first group of Ukrainian defenders from the 79th Airborne Brigade. At the end of May, his brigade entered the then termed ATO zone, the region of Ukraine being defended from Russian invasion and further Russian encroachment. On June the 3rd, Zaitsev took part in the liberation of Krasny Liman. In mid-June 2014, he was stationed in Sector D, which I will bring up a quick slide to show you here. Sector D is just in the north here of the kind of reddish pink area that you can see. So in 2014, he was stationed here in Sector D, and he became enveloped in the Izvarna cauldron, which was encircled at that time by Russian forces. On July the 31st, his company broke out from the encirclement, and on August the 6th, this was followed by his entire brigade. On July the 11th, 2014, he was in Zelopila, where Russian grads struck his brigade. By the end of August of 2014, apparently on the 26th, he returned from rotation to the combat zone, and he was assigned to Kramatorsk airfield. On September the 28th, just a month later, he was assigned to Donetsk International Airport. And there it is, Sergei Prokofiev Airport, or Donetsk International Airport. Round about 2013, prior to the Russian invasion, It was an airport that a few soccer fans might remember who went to Ukraine in the years before 2014. And here is Donetsk International Airport before and after the Russian invasion. So during this time, his service at the airport was significant. He fought in the second floor, which is right at the bottom of the bottom picture that you can see here, and at a later rotation, he was assigned to the fourth floor, and he and his fellow cyborgs withstood constant day and night attacks from Russian artillery targeting the airport building and the positions around it. After 2014, Zaitsev was assigned and pictured as one of the cyborgs, and this was, of course, the conditions they lived in at the time. For his service, Zaitsev received the Order of Courage of the 3rd degree, an example of which you can see here. Following his demobilization, he resumed his responsibilities in Zaporizhia, in his civilian responsibilities, particularly with regards to history and archaeology. Vyacheslav led the Zaporizhian Council of Veterans and took charge of the Scientific Library and Archive Department at the Hotitia National Reserve, which you can see pictured here. And these previous pictures, I should note, are some of the things which are included in the Hotitia National Reserve. Vyacheslav was a guy who knew an awful lot about what was at the bottom of the Dnipro. Before we get on to what you can see pictured here, I'll give you a little bit of a background about this beautiful place in Ukraine and the world. It's the largest island on the Dnipro River. It's located, of course, in Zaporizhia, just below the Dnipro hydroelectric power station. Nowadays, this place has gained importance for its revival of Ukrainian history. The island has its own historic and cultural center, a museum of navigation, and an interactive theater, while treasures like a 1,000-year-old sword was found here recently before the war, and was moved to a safe place upon the outbreak of the full-scale invasion. However, to this day, Hotitia is one of the most important educational, cultural, and historical centers of Ukraine, and it continues to develop further. It also inspires myths in Ukrainian culture and is popular due to its the Dnipro Rapids, geological structures that surfaced at the Dnipro riverbed between the modern cities of Dnipro and Zaporizhia. The primary section of the reserve, which I'll just show you a picture of. Oh, right, okay, right. Well, yeah, we're basically looking at it now. The primary section of the reserve is basically made up of a historical park, and it encompasses the Zaporizhian Cossack Museum, which hosts internationally famous horse shows, as well as providing visitors with knowledge on the history of the Zaporozhian Sich and the history of this region and how Cossacks used to live, and lots of interesting little bits of information about this. Vyacheslav was one of the people that you'd really would have wanted to have spoken to if you went here. According to a colleague, the kind of science that Vyacheslav enjoyed was not the type carried out in cramped offices with cheese sandwiches, cheese and onion crisps, I'm kind of thinking of, I guess, endless cups of tea, which probably get spilt over a few keyboards. No, he really didn't like that kind of environment. It was the steppe environment that he loved, the fresh air, the tents, the excavations, and engaging with people about what was underneath their feet. Vyacheslav was a guy who could tell you about what was at the bottom of the Dnipro, about the dozens of ships that sank hundreds of years ago, of the type that you see here in this picture.
Jonathan, a question. Is that a Viking boat?
I can't confirm that. I'd love to say it's a Viking boat, but I haven't dived to the bottom of the Dnipro like Vyacheslav had. But this. There we go. I had a picture of him actually diving. This is him just out of the water. I'm afraid I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. I mean, I mentioned the 1,000-year-old sword. Can you imagine the excitement of finding such a thing? The passion of archaeologists and historians like Vyacheslav, who worked there between 2015 and 2022. And people like him gave a great deal of something to take home with them and talk about for weeks, perhaps years on end. Around when a family gathering happens, or a child is sitting around a table and suddenly they're learning about the Vikings in school, or they're learning about a particular aspect of archaeology. Their encounter with Vyacheslav and people like him, they stay for a very, very long time. So, what's at the bottom of the Dnipro? It's literally, he had dived down there, and he could tell anybody who asked about these, quote, exhibits of the underwater museum. Olha Kolikina, a colleague working as a restorer at the Museum of the Zaporizhia Cossacks, praised Vyacheslav following his death as the most vibrant and selfless person in the reserve. According to Olha, he generously provided tools, consumable items, and he also utilized his cyborg status following the 2014 invasion to secure funding for the type of projects that happen at the reserve. I cannot confirm if the image you see is one of them, but I think we can imagine that such projects do need funding. Vyacheslav was a guy who was able to secure some of that. So creative fundraising discussions with colleagues highlighted Vyacheslav's remarkable contributions. As a defender of Ukraine, this was, of course, important to colleagues, and securing funds for things like this. Also, a hydroarchaeological expedition. He was able to aid in map publications. The list of his achievements is extensive. He had great influence on those around him, but he always expressed gratitude to his colleagues for involving him in their work. He was a humble man. He preferred to use public transport to reach the reserve, and he emphasized his focus on enabling academic research rather than seeking personal recognition in scientific papers. To paraphrase Vladimir Holoveshko, the then deputy head of the regional military administration, who spoke about Vyacheslav Zaitsev's legacy, he said, Vyacheslav raised the bar on the intellectual, moral, courageous levels amongst all who knew him in Zaporizhia. He was a man of encyclopedic knowledge, a role model in many things, a unique person, an example of how people can live not only for themselves. He gave his all to Zaporizhia, to the protection of the country and to his friends. On February the 23rd, 2022, Vyacheslav Zaitsev re-enlisted in the armed forces of Ukraine. He was killed whilst defending Ukraine from the Russians on the 5th of October, 2022. Before he died, when he was asked, "What are you fighting for?" he answered the following: "For my family and for my land, for my children and for the future of Ukraine." To his comrades, whilst he was engaged in combat upon the steppes of the Donetsk region, Vyacheslav envisaged a future triumph and a resumption of his archaeological endeavors in Zaporizhia. He spoke and wrote about a brighter future for Ukraine. He wrote down and spoke of his ideas for his work, the work of others, and what he would like to see in a peaceful and free Ukraine. So Ukraine's Greatest Generation is a segment that will continue from this week onward. We are open to any suggestions regarding a person who you would like to see featured in this segment as one of Ukraine's greatest generation. This person can be either a military service personnel or civilian or a volunteer. Please do tell us via one of the many ways you can contact us, specifically via the Tochnyi website, email, Twitter DM, or tag us in a post there. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. I wanted to ask you what caught your interest about this story. Like, why did you discover this person, and from where? I've never heard of him before. So,
I think it was a conversation with a fellow Tochnyi team member, and from there, I narrowed down this this search and found Zaitsev. I mean, there are so many stories that we hear, so many individuals which bear mention, and here at Tochnyi, we endeavor to do this. This is our Greatest Generation selection for this week.